Ready to get started?
I'm ready. Hope everyone's there.
We're going to get started. Hello and welcome to our second official Facebook Live broadcast. I'm Bree Day.
I'm Ray Harridan.
And it's nice to see you. It's nice to meet you if we haven't met you before. We are live right now from White House Station, New Jersey. We are at the RSL Auction Gallery. And if you have not heard of RSL Auctions before, the acronym stands for Ray Harridan, Leon, and Stephen Weiss, who Leon and Stephen are twin brothers, but Ray, Leon, and Stephen are partners, and they opened RSL Auctions in 2003. So they've been working together since then. They are experts in toys, banks, and folk art. And we have a 6,000-foot square gallery here in New Jersey, which we have a huge auction coming up this weekend. It's called Spectacular Stills, and it'll be going on Friday starting at 12 p.m. And we also then it'll start on Saturday at 10 a.m. And today we had a preview here at the gallery. So if you came to the gallery, thank you for stopping by. It was great seeing you. And if you didn't, now you're here. So technically you're live here with us. So
join us.
You're going to get to join us here. With that being said, why are we here? Well, we are broadcasting live just to feature some of our lots coming up in tomorrow and Saturday's auction. We figured that, it's a great way to be able to show our lots a little bit closer up, and we have an expert here so he can answer any questions that you might have. If you've not joined Facebook Live before, as you can see on the right side of your screen, you can literally type a question throughout the broadcast, and we have about a 15-second delay on our side, so bear with us if we don't answer you right away. And if we don't get to you, we will go through after the broadcast and we'll answer as many questions as we possibly can. So really, we just want to show you how some of the banks work, and if you are a collector, that's awesome. If you're not, that's okay too, because we're just here to really have a great time and talk about this hobby and talk about toys and banks and art, folk art, and just enjoy spending time here on a Thursday night. Right. So thank you for joining us. Now I would like to give a shout out to a couple people. We were just 3 weeks ago in New Orleans, Louisiana at a Mechanical Bank Collectors of America convention. If you are not a member, you can jump on to mechanicalbanks.org where you can fill out an application. And if you are, and you came to New Orleans, it was awesome seeing you. We had a great time. Ray and I were there along with his wife, Nancy, and Roberta Harridan. Hi, Roberta, if you're watching.
Hi, Mom.
And we would also like to thank everyone that welcomed us into their homes. We saw some absolutely fabulous world-class collections, not only of toys, not only of banks. We saw mechanical banks, we saw slot machines, we saw some art, we saw some Black Americana.
Duck decoys.
So thank you to Bruno Pepe and his wife. Thank you to Jack and Ann White. And also thank you to Elliot and Liz Harold. You made the convention special, so thank you for allowing us to join you in your homes. And if you're ever down in New Orleans, I highly recommend going to Café du Monde and having some beignets. If you haven't had one before, they're kind of a combination between a donut and funnel cake, so they're really good. So
make sure you wash it down with a little chicory coffee.
Yes, chicory coffee for sure. That's a must with the beignets. And New Orleans is just a really cultural town. If you love live music, there are jazz bands all up and down the French Quarter. So yes, we really loved it. The next convention in 2017 is going to be in Portland, Oregon. And it's going to be hosted by Frank and Joyce Kidd. They will also be showing us a world-class toy and bank collection. So that'll be June of next year. So we will be there. We hope to see you there. And with that, well, I said we had an auction coming up this weekend, which we're really excited for. We have over 1,000 lots in this sale.
It's a big sale.
But, oh.
Who's kicked what?
Say hello to our little friend.
This is one of our lots coming up in the sale. It's Sammy. How you doing, Sammy? It's been a long time since I've seen you.
Hi, Ray. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing very fine. You must feel good being out. You've been in the box for 110 years.
Ray, that's rude telling people my age.
You should be proud of it, Sammy. You look good. You're 110 years old.
I don't go around telling people how old you are.
No, you don't. But I'm just impressed. Sammy here is a great example of American folk art. What makes him folk art is he was actually hand-carved as opposed to a toy, which was mass-produced. How do you feel about that, Sammy? Someone actually crafted you.
I'm very special, Ray.
You are very special. Yeah.
You are special, Sammy.
By the way, Bree, I think you better stick to your day job. I don't know if ventriloquism is actually for you.
I agree with Ray. Well, what can I say? I tried.
Well, again, Sammy's a piece of folk art. We're going to be offering him up this weekend. He's about 43 inches tall. Right after the turn of the century, vaudeville was very big, and actually a lot of people made their living by being a ventriloquist, something that Bree's going to strive to be. 4 or 5 years of practice, I think it should be perfect.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate the support.
Where's Sammy?
Thanks, Ray.
You're welcome, Sammy. But again, it's a piece of folk art. Behind us, we also have a couple other examples of folk art that are not in the sale, but are available at our gallery. We have Hilda back here, which is a shooting target. Very, very rare. This is one of the best shooting targets known in the world. You actually go to a carnival and shoot at it. Reed, our mascot elephant, it watches over our gallery. And behind us, we have a number of toys that sort of give you an example of what we buy and sell here.
Thanks, Ray.
You're welcome, Sammy.
All right, thank you, Sammy.
Time to
I'm
put
gonna
Sammy
send him
away.
back down here. So as Ray said, Sammy is lot 1006 in the sale. You can search that on Live Auctioneers if you would like to see some closer up pictures of him. And that is Sammy. So next we're going to move on to lot 856, which is this Chief Big Moon bank. It is a mechanical bank. It was manufactured, I'm going to move it a little closer to you just so that you can get a better look at it. It was manufactured by J&E Stevens in Cromwell, Connecticut. And like I said, it is mechanical. So Ray, would you please demonstrate how this works for us?
Sure. This is one of my favorite banks. One of the first banks I ever got. What makes this interesting is actually, this is a paint variation. We call it a red base, Chief Big Moon, because of the red base. The one that you'll most often see will have a copper base, which is almost the color of this teepee, not quite, but that's what you usually see. This bank is wonderful. Frog is actually in the pond, folds up underneath the pond here. There are actually 2 little ducks on top floating along. And then you have your Indian squaw that's actually roasting a fish over the open fire. You take a penny and you place it there, and then, let's see if you can see this. You push the lever and the frog jumps up and the coin goes in.
That's so cool.
All that motion is what makes it a mechanical bank.
Yeah.
That's where it gets the terms. There's 2 types of banks, essentially, a mechanical bank and a still bank. Still bank has no motion. Mechanical bank has a lot of motion. Again, this is made by J&E Stevens. Easiest way to recognize the Stevens Bank is on the bottom here where the coin,
I'll move it a
where
little
the
closer.
coins come out.
This is what he's mentioning right here.
That we call a coin trap. A coin trap just retains the pennies in for the child. You'd either use your fingers or a screwdriver. You can turn it and then shake your pennies out. A common thing that a lot of people tell me is they won't buy a bank because it's missing the trap. The trap's important, but traps are fairly easy to find. You can either get replacements or originals. Replacements generally run about $50. Originals are generally about $100. You can maybe get them for a little less, but it's not a reason to not buy a bank. You can always replace those.
So you mentioned that this was a red base. So how many other color variations are there of this bank?
Well, actually on this bank there's really only 2. There's a red base and the copper base. Those are the only 2. And what we look for, and this is a very, very fine example, but on the waves here you'll see a little bit of white highlighting. The ducks are painted white. There's 2 little ducks. The level of paint quality on that's very important. Underneath the frog, I don't know if you can see that there, Bree, but there's copper highlights to represent the fire. Those sort of details very often are missing. Probably the most common problem with this bank are the squaw's arms. This fish is very delicate. Kids would pull on it, move it around. Very often they'll be broken and then replaced. Again, all those things aren't the end of the world when it comes to the value of a mechanical bank, but it does affect the price. So you just want to make sure that you are purchasing a bank that's accurately described, and and that's what people look for. So you're looking for those certain little aspects that will sort of tell you how nice this bank compares to other of similar examples.
There's great patina on this bank. It's really nice. I hope that it's coming across on camera as nice as it is in person. It's
the nice
really
thing
nice
about
example.
this bank, it's a good standalone bank. It's one of those banks like you don't need a whole collection. They look very good on like an end table where you're sort of looking down on it because it's a good view from the top. People prefer the red base. Red base generally sells for maybe $2,000 to $3,000 more than the copper base. Maybe a little less depending on the condition range. But again, with the red, the colors really pop. It looks good in anyone's home.
Very nice. So with that one, that is lot 856. We are going to move on to our Uncle Sam bank, which is lot 837. I'm also going to give you a closer look of him. He was manufactured by Shepherd Hardware. I hope that I'm moving him slow enough for you so that you can see his beard is moving as we speak.
The beard wiggles. It's part of the action of the bank.
And the Shepherd Hardware was out of Buffalo, New York. He is circa 1886, and he is also a mechanical, so he also has action, just like the Chief Big Moon Bank. And Ray will show us how,
you know how
he
it works.
works
Ray,
as
why don't
well.
you show us how it works? You can work that one.
Can I?
You
I
can.
don't know if I've ever tried to work this one.
Well, you have to put it on. Usually this bank you
All
want
right,
to put
I'm
on a
gonna
firm
set it
surface.
Can you see where he is? Okay, I think we can see him.
You can see him. Coin goes in his right hand.
All right.
He's a typical politician. Right here. Put the money in his hand, push the lever, and he drops it into his bag.
Very cool.
Things never change. This is 120 years old. It's the same thing.
That was very cool.
Uncle Sam, you will usually see this bank as a reproduction. You look on eBay, you look in any antique store, 99% of them you're going to see are reproductions. One of the easiest ways to tell if it is a reproduction, it's not absolute, but banks made by Shepherd Hardware in the back, their coin trap, is a square key
Right
lock
here.
trap. On the reproductions, most of them, and they've been reproduced in China, they've been reproduced in Taiwan, they've been reproduced in Pennsylvania. There's maybe 5 or 6 companies that have reproduced them over the years.
Really?
Very often you'll see this in banking ads. They'll use these banks.
Why this bank in particular?
It's one of the most popular banks. It's iconic. It's Uncle Sam. People like it. Originals are fairly expensive. They'll start at about, for an original bank that's pretty much all original, they'll start at maybe $1,500 to $1,800. Some examples can get up to the top end, but this doesn't apply to most banks. But at the very top end, it's sort of $40,000, $50,000 bank.
Wow.
This bank here is probably going to sell just under $10,000. Actually, interesting with this bank, it does come with the original box.
Okay. My apologies that the wording is backwards on this.
And wording
but-
backwards, but
so that you can get a closer look at it. It is the original box. And he fits right in there.
these banks, yes, this was made by Shepherd. Now, there were 3 main manufacturers of mechanical banks. The first bank, the Chief Big Moon, was made by J&E Stevens, which was the largest manufacturer. That's Cromwell, Connecticut. Uncle Sam here was made by Shepherd Hardware, which was in Buffalo, New York. They're probably the 2nd largest manufacturer. And in a bit, we're going to see another banker. The next bank is made by Kaiser and Rex, which is out of Philadelphia. And those 3 manufactured roughly probably 80-85% of all mechanical banks. So again, Uncle Sam, you want to look for a square trap. If you look at the base and there's a hole like we saw on the Chief Big Moon where the money, like a circular hole,
So as you can see in this one, unlike the Chief Big Moon, it does
there's-
not have a hole in the bottom.
If there's a hole in the bottom, it's definitely a reproduction. I hate to tell you. But that's the easiest way. Now, just because it has a key trap does not necessarily mean that it's original.
Okay.
There are some reproductions that have key traps. So, key trap, it may be original. Hole in bottom, it's definitely a reproduction. This bank is a very fine example. Shepherd banks were not primered. Other manufacturers would put a primer coat on their banks, which would hold the paint. Shepherd did not. The paint tends to flake very easily. What makes this bank a very fine example, the blue jacket, this is all painted blue back here.
Okay.
For some reason, that blue did not like sticking to the cast iron. It flakes very easily. So very often, the jacket will be missing a lot of the paint. The other thing we're looking at on this bank is the striping on the pants. I'll just show them the striping on the pants. So there's nice red striping on the pants. That's very important when it comes to the value. The vest, you see little stars on his vest. On this one, there's a little bit of white, but most of it's gone. Some examples, those stars will have a lot of white paint on them. But again, this is well above average. Expected probably to sell in the 6,000 to 8,000 range. And another one on why we picked it, an iconic bank. You can own this bank alone. It looks good. It has height, so it really presents well on the shelf.
It does. I could see how it would present well. Okay, that was Uncle Sam. Now we are going to move on to lot 811, which is sitting here right in front of us. It is the articulated horse and jockey. And this is pretty big. That's why I'm struggling getting the entire thing in the shot here for you. And it's pretty heavy. But I just want to give you a closer look at the patina on this. It is beautiful. It is shining. You can see it here on video. I mean, I honestly think that this would just be great for a mantle. I mean...
Oh, it is. It's a real showpiece. It's a real showstopper. Again, I've handled thousands and thousands of toys. This is a very rare toy. It's only the second one I've ever handled, and it's the finest one.
Wow, the second one.
It has a very interesting motion that's run by wires underneath, and I don't know if you can see, but actually the legs go back and forth on this horse. The jockey can move a little bit, but he's not actually articulated in a mechanical fashion. It's more through gravity. The toy's always electroplated, which is this sort of coppery finish on it. This one's sort of set apart by the cap being painted red, and it has a gold sash around them. Very impressive toy. Sort of an interesting side note, we, meaning the collecting community, believe that it was made by Ives. It has the feel of an Ives toy. That's the only way I can describe it, but we can't find it in any catalogs. Again, there's only one other example known of it. The wheels are very intricate. They have like these little floral designs in them. The base has a lot of intricate casting. A lot of things why people get attracted to early cast iron toys is the quality of the craftsmanship is exceptional. And the detailing, that, again, this was everything that we essentially sell, except for folk art, anything that we call a toy was mass produced and was meant to be sold for children to use on Christmas morning or their birthday. Here, there's a little hole up front. You would tie a string in, and Johnny would pull that all around the house. And you see a toy like this, and if you knew how I was a kid with toys, first door I went around, that thing would have slammed right into that door jamb.
I can imagine.
I was rough with my toys. That makes them rare,
well,
though.
who isn't, right?
But this is really a very, very fine toy. It's probably going to be selling in the 20 to 25,000 range. That's sort of an indication of its value and rarity. One of my favorite things in the wholesale.
Wow. Okay. So that was our horse and jockey. Now we're going to move on to lot 1034, which is our Palace Bank. It was made by Ives Blakely circa 1890. And I think that this is one of the nicest, in my opinion, buildings in this sale. I really love it. I love that just how intricate it is up front with all the gold.
Well, Bree hit it right on the head there. It's one of the most elaborately and fine casted of all still banks. It's an exceptional example of craftsmanship. Again, most of these craftsmen, this whole industry was a spin-off from the Civil War. We had a lot of industry in the north that were producing guns, cannons, bladed weapons, helmets, a lot of metal shops. Civil War ended. All these manufacturers had to decide how they're going to stay in business. And a number of them turned to toys as part of their income flow.
And this is a still bank. Unlike the mechanical banks, there's no action. You can see, I don't know if you saw it when I spun it, but there is a coin slot there in the back. But
that's what makes it a still bank. Is it just like, it's an old-time piggy bank, but an elaborate piggy bank at that. Nice thing about this is actually the original administration building at West Point, which I believe was destroyed in a fire, it's early century. But it almost identical to it. Again, there's no actual proof to that, but that's sort of what we believe. There's a lot of things to look on this bank. There's a lot of little small castings and a lot of detail, a lot of the railing, very fine. So you really have to look at that. These steeples can very often be replaced. The chimneys on either end very often will be replaced. And again, that's not really a problem, but you don't want to pay for one, paying a price for something that you think is original, and then these tend to be replaced. That will affect the value, which, that's one of the biggest things that we try to get over, and one of the reasons we're doing this broadcast is try to educate the collector on things that you should look for, and and these are the things that we look for when we catalog the banks. This bank actually has the original trap, which is fairly common on this bank. It usually has a trap, but it's an unusual trap in that it has a strange key. The keys for this bank are nearly impossible to get. There are a couple out there, but very, very difficult. As opposed to the Stevens Bank, if this trap is not there, that is a little bit of an issue because it's difficult to replace. Generally, if it's missing the trap, the only way you're going to be able to get one is you're going to have to buy another bank, which can become a whole process.
And also on the trap, while he's talking about it, it does say IB and Co., which stands for Ives Blakely. So do all of them have that? If it's an Ives Blakely?
Not all of them are articulated horse there. There's no markings on it whatsoever. And Ives was a huge conglomerate. So it's sort of comparable to what it was Mattel or Hasbro. They were a toy manufacturer in Connecticut, but they would also buy out smaller manufacturers on a regular basis, and they just started collecting toys. And actually, I believe Ives is an incarnation of one of those larger toy companies that are around today that was bought out at a later time. But they sort of collected, at that time, it was almost a cottage industry, because what happened in Connecticut and how these things all came into fruition was you had heavy industry with cast iron. You also had a big clock industry up there. So they made clockwork toys. You had a lot of skilled workers that worked with basically metal, tin, all that. And that's where the whole birth of the toy industry was. And really what put America on the map with toys is we were the leaders of industrialization, and we were first basically to apply industrialization to toys and started producing them on a very broad level.
That's very interesting.
Part of American history there.
History lesson for today. Okay.
All right, so that's the Palace Bank.
That's the Palace Bank.
Also on this, talking color variations. Bree, do you know how many color variations there are of a Palace Bank?
I do not.
3. It also will come in green or red. Red probably being the most desirable of all the colors.
Why is red the most desirable?
Again, like with the Chief Big Moon, red, when you put it on the shelf, pops.
Okay.
And it has the most presence. Also, the red and the green, they're rarer than this one because in the catalogs they would list these and they would call them fancy colors. So you could buy the Palace Bank, which was just the Palace Bank, or you could buy it in fancy colors, which means red or green. Red or green would cost more money. Consequently, they sold less of them, so they're rarer today, more desirable.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so that's that one. The next one we're going to feature is in the spirit of Halloween that is approaching quickly.
Little
we are
Mr.
going
McGinty.
with Mr. McGinty, who also, I'm going to bring closer to you so you can get a better look at him.
Look at him waving at everyone
I
out
think
there.
that he is so cute, which I don't know if cute is the right word to describe a skeleton, but I love Halloween. So me personally, I think he is just adorable.
He's really moving there. Now, I just led up to this. He's an example of a clockwork toy. We call him the McGinty Dancer. I'm not really sure where that name came from, but he's listed in the Ives catalog, and that's the name they gave him. Clockwork. There's actually a clockwork motor inside this box. You wind it up in the back, and let me get him going. He's a little...
He dances.
Yeah. Do that jig.
He's doing the skeleton jig. The skelly jig.
Ives made a whole series of toys like this that we call jigger toys. They have Irishmen, they have various dancers that would all, there's probably literally 50 to 60 different variations of what we call as a jigging toy.
Oh, wow.
McGinty Dancer is one of the rarer ones. Not the rarest, but one of the rarer ones. And he's really, the detailing, if you can see, like in the skeleton's head, there's little teeth in the front. Can you see that, Bree?
I can see it.
You see those teeth? Great, very early. These toys are very, very early. They started right after the Civil War. Generally, their heyday was in the 1860s and 70s. They were often referred to as parlor toys. You know why they were called parlor toys?
No, why?
Well, back then there was no TV, and heaven forbid there was no Facebook.
What?
There were no radios.
Right.
There were no records. So you had to sit at home and read. Wouldn't you like that?
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine that.
But actually, so after dinner, again, toys basically were sold to the wealthier families. Back then, most children, when they hit 10, 11, 12, they actually went to work in the factories. Their toys were usually sticks and cans and things like that. But wealthy families had this. After dinner, they would retire to the parlor. These actually have clockwork mechanisms in them. You would wind them up, and some of them were meant to last over an hour. They would actually go. So it was like
Really?
amusement.
Would you set up multiple?
If you had multiple, they would get multiple going, and it was basically their form of entertainment. They would play board games. It was a conversation piece, and it what brought families together.
That's really neat.
Again, at that time, there was no electricity. No electricity. What would you do?
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, the whole field, I love these. They're really museum type pieces, clockwork toys, and I think they are not really truly appreciated by the toy world, but I think they should be.
I agree.
That's McGinty.
McGinty. And we have McGinty. So next we are going to stay in the spirit of holidays.
We're going on to Christmas.
We're going on to Christmas.
Make a little room here.
We have pulled a couple lots. These are Santas, and we've got lot 501, 508, and 510 here. They're made by Ives, Arcade, and Hubley. So each one has a different...
Ives, Arcade, Hubley.
Yes.
Ives, Arcade, Hubley.
Each one, different manufacturer. They are all still banks as well. I'm going to hold each one of them closer so that you can see. I'm going to start with this one, and I will give him a little spin for you. See, he also has a coin slot in the back. Great for holiday decorations, for sure. I think that they're really cute. This one also his face is a little interesting, we'll say, but he has a coin slot on the back as well. So Santa number 2. We're going to go with Santa number 3, who also has a snow-covered tree next to him, which is really neat. And I'll give him a little spin too. And his coin slot is on top of his head. So for these ones, Ray, how would you get the coins out of them? Well, the other ones you shook for mechanicals.
Well, yes. Well, mechanicals generally have a trap. Still banks in general, they all have a screw in back.
Okay.
So you unscrew it. You take the pieces apart. There are some still banks that you had to break to get into. Those tend to be rare because once they were filled with coins, they broke them. But generally, they'll have screws. Talking about no electricity. Prior to the screw, there were no screws. So at that point, and you can't find this bank in particular, it's called a twist pin, which is actually sort of like a rod with a head, and there's sort of a flange area on the back. You push it through and turn it 90 degrees, and it would hold it together.
Oh, wow.
Bank like this bank in particular, you can either get it with a twist pin or with a screw. Those are 2 variations. Another variation on this is there's an example of Santa with no tree. So they call that Santa with no tree, which is actually rarer than Santa with tree. Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure.
Who wants a Santa Claus without a tree?
That's
You
true.
need a tree with Santa Claus.
What's Christmas without a tree?
You need that tree. This bank, very nice condition. Good gold highlights, especially on the tree and the boots. Nice gold around the face. That's what makes that a nice example. Now, another example with the Santa with tree, it's called Santa with tree. The Ives example of this bank. What makes this particularly nice, this is another one of my favorite lots in the sale. This is a polychrome or multi-painted example of the bank. Generally, this bank will just come electroplated, sort of like our little jockey here, this sort of copperish color. But for an extra fee, Ives did produce them multicolored. Toys are painted, nice facial detail. If you look at the beard, there's nice graying in the beard. People prefer it because when you put it on the shelf, especially next to an electroplated one, this one stands out. We call this with a removable tree. This is basically an old wire type tree that would actually pop in and out of the bank.
How many of these in this variation have you seen?
Well, the painted versions are really very, very rare. The unpainted are fairly common as far as still banks go. Painted, I guess here in RSL we've sold 3 other painted versions. I've maybe seen another 5 or 6. So as far as Santas go, there's probably fewer than 20 painted versions out there in various conditions. This is way toward the top end of the scale. I don't know if I call it the best one, but of the ones that I've handled, I like the patina on this the best. Okay. It has a very nice patina, has a very nice look to it. It does have a couple chips, but not too many, so I like that. Now, the rarest of the Santas is your friend here. Now, he doesn't have a tree, but probably more important to a tree is he does have a pack. Yes. That's the way they brought the toys to him. This was made by Arcade. It's a little bit later. These were pre-1900. This is about 1910, 1920, and this is about the same, 1910, 1920. Very rare, most likely because
he has a pack.
No, because he has a face only a mother could love. So I don't think they sold that many of these. I believe there are only 3 of these known. There might only be 2. Under 5. It's very, very rare. So again, from a collector's point of view, most people that sort of have really collected with Ernst and vigor over the years, they all will have this. Again, there's about 20 of these, so it's a pretty rarefied collection. But we're talking maybe 3. This is where the real competition at auction heats up. The top end of the market, that's what they strive for, these real rarities and in exceptional condition like this.
Wow.
So it's a nice example of basically the still banks that are Santa related. There are some other ones, but that gives you a good idea.
So those were our Santas for this auction. With that, we are going to move backwards to...
What are we looking for here?
Well, I was actually looking for this one that I don't see right next to me right at the moment, which is fine. So we're going to move on to...
We'll move into some toys.
Some toys. We're going to move into Tin Toy. This is called a Layman. The name for it is actually Naughty Boy. And I'm just going to give it a little spin here. As you can see, there is a lot of detail on the side of this. This is a German tin toy in particular. Let me tilt this so that you can... And I'm sorry, the writing is going to be backwards on this as well, but at least it gives you an idea of the detail on this toy. There.
All right. Now, this is a whole class of toy. And here at RSL, we sell all types of toys, from the very earliest, right after the Civil War. Basically, there are almost no toys made prior to the Civil War. There are a couple examples that I've handled that would predate the Civil War, but essentially they're all after the Civil War. This toy here was when industrialization reached Europe. This is called a Layman toy. Ernest Paul Layman. He produced a large line of toys. They are characterized by he was one of the first people to make toys for the masses. So this was a very inexpensive toy that was to be sold to this new middle class that was emerging all over the world at that time. I believe there's maybe about 130, 150 different Layman toys. This is one of the more common ones. Most Layman toys are marked Layman. I don't know if you can see it there. And then there's also, he has a logo, which looks like a bell with a dumbbell on top of it. They were wind-up toys, so you would wind them up, place them on the ground, and they would roll along.
I know you can't really see that, but it did roll across the table.
There is a table here, but it does roll. It's a fun collectible because there are some very expensive Laymans, but in general, most of them are under $1,000, and really quite a few. This toy, for example, which is all original, will probably sell for $300 to $350.
Okay.
So it's a very fun toy. They're very colorful. It's something that is very popular to collect.
And they're light as well.
That's a light toy.
Compared to the mechanical and still banks, that's for sure.
And
I believe
we got one more.
We have one more over
this
there.
This is an example. This sort of came in. It was a late addition to the auction, but we do sell a lot of boats in our auction house. This is made by a company called Bing, another German manufacturer. It's made out of tin, pressed tin. It's a Bing destroyer. I don't know. I'd say that's about, I don't know. I didn't measure. I think it's about 15, 16 inches.
Yep. I'm going to give you a closer look at this one. As you can see, the little lifeboats on the side.
And then those
Pretty
tubes
cool.
there, those yellow tubes there, Bree, those are actually torpedo tubes. So that's how they fired the early torpedoes. It was basically a pipe that they would stick the torpedo in and ignite it, and it would actually fire off of the deck of the boat. There in the front, there is a gun. I guess one of the reasons I pulled it, most of the boats are large, so it's hard to really see the whole thing. But this is a very nice, compact boat that's all original, which these were pawn boats. So this was, again, you're giving to your kid.
Put it in water?
You'd wind it up. There's a key wind right in the very top. You wind it
wow.
up. You put it in the lake. And the thing would sail out in the middle of the lake, and the kid would never see the toy again. So that's why it's so rare. If you're like, Dad, can you swim out and get my boat? Dad would probably go, no. You go swim and get it yourself.
That's funny.
So again, this is something that, an example of another type of toy that we offer here at RSL that I just thought was a very nice example that we should show.
Yes, very nice, for sure. So those are all the lots that we had pulled specifically to show you a little closer up, more in-person live view of. But with that being said, we are going to be here for a couple more minutes, and we have a few announcements to make. But if you have any questions on any of the other lots in the sale, this is tomorrow's catalog, feel free to type them on the right side of the screen, and we would be happy to answer any questions. Even after the broadcast, this video is going to be available on our social media page, so you can still ask questions there. If you haven't registered to bid yet on the sale, you can go to liveauctioneers.com, type in RSL Auctions, and everything will pop right up there. And you can also still, you can place bids really
Up until
the start of the sale. So I am going to move on to a couple of our upcoming trips that we have coming up. So the next show that we are going to be at is at the Kane County Fairgrounds in St. Charles, Illinois. It is on October 23rd, and it is an antique toy and doll show.
Next weekend.
It's a pretty neat show, and at the fairgrounds, there's a bunch of different buildings where you can go in between, and there's a lot of different fields represented there, not just toys and banks, but there's Star Wars there, there's advertising there, there's an entire building of dolls, which is really cool, and I enjoy it. It's a fun show to go to.
I agree.
The next one after that is going to be on October 30th. It is the East Coast Toy Soldier Show in Hackensack, New Jersey. So we will be at that for sure. And following that, we will be traveling to Allentown, PA at the Antique Toy Show and Sale on November 5th. You can see both of us there as well, along with, I know Leon will be there,
maybe
Leon Weiss,
Steven.
and maybe Steven as well, and Julian will be there too.
That's true.
And I love that show just because there's a market across the street that I mean, I don't know if it's actually a half mile long, but it feels like it's a half mile long, and there's food, any type of food you can imagine. There's fresh fruit, there's homemade trail mixes, and all kinds of neat things that you can only get at that
It's called
market.
Ag Hall.
Ag Hall.
Ag
That's
Hall.
the actual name
All
for it.
kinds of good Pennsylvania Dutch cooking there.
Yes, it's very good. So if you stop by the show, I'd walk across. It's right across the street from the building in Allentown, and I would definitely check that out.
Kent recommends the shoe fly pie.
Does he?
Yes, he does. Never had it, but I might have to try.
Never had that. Shoe fly
We're
pie.
gonna have to try it, I guess.
Okay, I guess we will have to try that this
I
time.
hope they're not flies in it.
I know, the name doesn't sound so appealing. But, so those are the next couple shows. And following that, our next auction is going to be, it's for Cyber Toy Auctions, which is, if you haven't heard of Cyber Toy Auctions, it's a subsidiary of RSL, where we are just doing our auctions online. It's online only. It's also on Live Auctioneers. You can find us, just type in Cyber Toy Auctions, and we work with that. Myself, as well as Julian and Ray, Steven, and Leon work with Cyber Toy Auctions, or for Cyber Toy Auctions, really. And we did our first sale a month ago, and our second sale is going to be November 12th. And that'll feature Keystone Toys and Banks. I believe there are going to be about 600 lots in that sale. We don't have a final count as of right now, but that will be up online very shortly, within the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. The next RSL auction following that will be March 18th and 19th.
That's going to be a great one.
That is fantastic. It's the Jim Rochla collection. The still banks, everything in this collection was just the condition. It is pristine. They're beautiful. I've seen them in person.
Bree had the privilege of going with us to actually pack them.
I know. Packing them was fun, for sure.
Does a lot of packing.
But yeah, so we went to see them, and they are beautiful. Really some of the best, and Ray can attest to this because he's seen a lot more still banks than I personally have, but they are the most beautiful, some of the most beautiful examples of still banks that I've ever seen since I've been working with RSL and Ray and Cyber Toys. So I would definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. That's not up online yet either, but we'll be sending out flyers and catalogs for that. So March 18th and 19th, mark your calendar. And we'll be back here in New Jersey if you'd like to stop by our gallery. The next auction after that is actually for Old Toy Soldier Auctions, which Ray and I also run online. We're hubbed out of Pittsburgh for that auction, but that will be November 13th. And we have some various manufacturers for that. And then the next Old Toy Soldier auction after that is December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We have various manufacturers represented in that. I know there's Alamer, Marlboro, Britton's, some King and Country. You know, there's a bunch of manufacturers. I can't name them all off the top of my head. There's so many, but I know that that's going to be over 1,000 lot sale, and the prices will be all over the board. There are new soldiers, there are old soldiers. So you can jump and check out oldtoysoldierauctions.com for that as well if you'd like to take a closer look. And that also runs through Live Auctioneers. And then we have a very exciting announcement. So we will be returning to New York January 2017
Bree's
for
favorite show.
my favorite show of the year, for the Winter Antique Show. It is at the Armory on Park Avenue. It is a 2-week show. This year it's from January 20th to the 29th. There are the most beautiful exhibits. It really is a world-class show. It goes from the beginning when we're there setting up to an open warehouse to this beautiful, the booths, I mean, they're constructed in 48 hours. It's amazing. You have to see it. It's a must-see. We'll be there.
It's probably the world's finest antique show.
It's really nice. And
there we exhibit as Gemini Antiques.
Yes.
And, you know, it's really worth stopping by, whatever you like. If you want to see what collecting very fine antiques is all about, the Winter Antique Show is the place to go. Make sure you stop by the Gemini Antique booth.
Yes, stop by and say hello. So, and I know that I believe we'll be doing another live from there. So stay
That's
tuned.
our plan.
That's the plan as of right now. So I don't really see any other questions, but if you have any others, feel free to ask us before the auction, or visit our website for RSL. Thank you to everyone who's joined us for the broadcast, and I really
Thanks,
think,
everyone. We had a lot of watching.
I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we will be seeing you. We're going to do another broadcast before Cyber Toy Auctions, so we will post an announcement for that as well.
Until then, keep collecting.
Thank you.